Hello, hello. All right. I think we are ready to go here. Sorry for some backward. Trying to get that glare too. Maybe if I do this, move this down a little bit. Then I sit further away. Nothing's better. Scoot it over towards the middle. All right, what's up, everyone? My name is Dr. Chris Bowman. I'm so happy you are here with me on this webinar or watching the replay, whatever it may be. I hope it's going to be super, super informative for you. So what I am going to do here is share my screen so that way you can see the PowerPoint. Allergies and asthma, share. Okay, so let's blow this up here. All right, so I'm super excited to be doing this webinar with you guys for a couple different reasons. One, I love talking about this stuff. I feel like I talk about it every day in the office. I think about it, talk about it with my friends. Definitely a passion of mine because it's potentially a life-threatening issue. You can be fine 1 minute and be struggling to breathe another minute. So this really is something that we want to make sure that we're addressing and knowing what to do to prevent the issue from coming on in the first place. Things like allergies and asthma. What we're going to do today, just a quick verbal outline, and then we'll get started with the content. So we're going to talk a little bit about allergies, a little bit about asthma, why it's important to talk about this, what things to be aware of. We're going to be talking about the immune system, so how to understand allergies and asthma and why it's happening. We're going to be talking about the neurological component, so that way we know what to do at a root cause. We're going to be talking about 5 ways to boost your kid or yourself's immunity, so that way we can prevent. And we'll talk about the costs of preventative versus reactive care. And then we're also going to talk about what you can do kind of towards the end, so that we can make sure that you're doing your best to prevent allergies and asthma in your kid. Okay. So unfortunately with asthma, there's increasing rates of asthma in kids. Today with allergies, there's more allergies than ever before. If your kids go to public school, you'll know you can't bring like stuff with peanuts, or you can't bring like really anything homemade into school. It's got to be bought like on school property or whatever. So you're celebrating your kid's birthday or things like that, which I remember I used to when I was little. My mom would bring me my favorite food. We'd share it with everyone. Same thing with asthma. I'm finding more and more kids have to have inhalers. More and more kids are being diagnosed with asthma. So let's dig into a little bit why, and especially why these things get more irritating during this season, in the cold season. And so asthma, it's super stressful, it's super scary. It's not just a kid carrying around an inhaler, but this inhaler could be life-saving. The things that describe asthma are the kid will say they have trouble breathing, there's panic, there's stress, there's anxiety, the immune system's not working right. Sometimes you know the triggers, sometimes you don't. The interesting thing about when we look at the stress that initiates these asthma attacks, we can look at a couple different things. The muscles surrounding your lungs. These are the primary muscles, and the primary muscle used for breathing is the lower cervical, is the diaphragm, okay? And then you have lower cervical spine. It's also a control center for anxiety, stress, and upper airways. So what it's saying is that you have muscles that are surrounding your lungs. You have nerves that are going to their muscles. There's a primary generator of movement within the diaphragm that's also controlled by your nervous system. And then also in your neck, so your lower cervical spine, that's right in here, there's nerves that are the control center for anxiety, as well as stress, and also the nerves that are going to our upper airway, okay? With allergies, most common thing that you hear of is like pet dander, pollen, foods, grasses, seasonal allergies, seasonal blooms, things like that. And allergens as threats. So this is a super interesting concept to think about. Instead of we're thinking about my specific body is allergic to a specific pollen, and thinking of the pollen or the dander or that sort of thing as the main issue. What I want you to think about is kind of flip it. If you bring 5 people in a room and only one person responds to pollen, is pollen truly the culprit, or is there something wrong with that body? Okay, and so if you look at the bottom of the slide here, your body is the culprit. Your body is actually the reason why it's responding, because allergy isn't, or pollen and dander isn't a universal allergen. The universal allergen would be something like like a DDT or Agent Orange or something like that. So where you have that sprayed around and every single person is going to react because it's actually a toxin. Okay, pet dander, pollen, those sort of things aren't necessarily toxins as much as they are irritants. Okay, and they're not irritants to everybody, but in a certain combination, there has to be a certain combination of things going on for that to become irritant. Okay. And what happens is your nervous system is inappropriately perceiving the allergen, the pet dander, the pollen, the seasonal bloom, as a threat, and it's reacting inappropriately to it. Okay, and then what we're going to get into is a little bit of reason why that might be happening, especially during this time of year. Okay, so these are going to be some of the things that we focus on for the rest of the seminar. The first thing is there's less movement going on. Okay, as the holidays come about, it's cold, it's rainy. For some of you, it may be snowy or things like that. Overall, there's less movement. They're not playing around the swings, playing around the playground, running around the track, things like that. Movement is actually really, really important, not just to lose weight and have optimal cardio health and those sort of things. So you don't think about those things in kids. The reason why movement is super, super important is because the movement of the spine actually starts to stimulate the brain. Okay, if the brain is not being appropriately stimulated, it's going to lose touch with what's going on in the environment. Therefore, when you have something small like allergies or like an allergen or an irritant, the brain is going to perceive that and be like, whoa, there hasn't been anything. Now all of a sudden there's this influx of things that are trying to get in me. We gotta react. We gotta send all the troops at it. Okay. The second thing as the holidays come about is we have extra stress and we have less sleep. Okay. Extra stress means that the body has less adaptability, which we'll talk about in the bottom corner. And less sleep means the less the body is in a parasympathetic or restful mode to recover from stress. Okay. Oftentimes the immune system is already challenged. Okay, so kids are getting more sick. Everybody else is getting more sick during the season. So if the immune system is already challenged, it's going to be on high alert. Kind of like when you after a recent terrorist attack, it's a terrible example, but it's the only one I think of. After a recent terrorist attack, what does all the security everywhere do? It's optimally elevated, right? So if you have something that looks like a knife or you have something that looks threatening, there's going to be a much higher response because of the recent memory of some bad person that did some terrible thing. Okay, and so we want to make sure that that if your immune system is already being compromised, if it's already on the down low or it's already on the attack, you add something else, and that's why it might not respond appropriately because it's giving this big, huge response when it actually doesn't have to. Okay. The other thing, as the daylight saving time goes away and our daylight hours start to shrink, we actually get less vitamin D. Okay, so that's this top one right up in here. Weather often limits outside time as well, like we talked about earlier. Vitamin D is a catalyst, to, which means that it makes processes easier in almost every single kind of reaction that's going on within the body. Without vitamin D, ultimately, your body works less efficiently and less optimally. Okay, so if you add less movement, less sleep, more stress, an immune system that's already being compromised or challenged, and then you don't have the catalyst that makes things run easier, that means your body is getting overwhelmed with stress and toxins. Okay, nutrition. So what also happens during the holidays? Kids are eating way, way, way more sweets and sugar and things that they're not supposed to be, right? So you had all these things as well as poor nutrition. Now the body's not getting the building blocks. Now the immune system is not being supported. The digestive system isn't being supported. We'll talk about why that's important in a minute. And so it's this big storm of all these things coming together at once to create flu season, right? And then ultimately our bodies just become less adaptable. So all these factors that we talked about cause the body to become less adaptable, okay, which means that it takes less for the body to react more. So we're going to kind of divide it up into three different categories here. We're going to talk a lot about the nervous system. We're going to be talking a lot about the immune system, and that's going to kind of come together and explain the endocrine system, okay? So the nervous system, we have the brain, that's that first picture there. It's the master control center of the entire body. Everything you touch, taste, feel, smell, see goes in from the body part that's sensing it, okay? And it'll go travel up those nerves up to your spinal cord, and then from your spinal cord up to your neck or up to your brain. At that point, your brain is responsible for understanding, what is this? What should I do about it? And then once it figures that out, it'll send a message back down to the spinal cord, out the appropriate nerves, so that way your body can adapt to the environment, okay? And that relates to the immune system. So if the brain is figuring out what's going on here and it inappropriately translates or processes the environment, that might trigger the immune system. And so the immune system is not going to be working inappropriately because the brain perceives inappropriately. Okay, the immune system typically is responsible for health and for healing. Okay, so not only does it send an attack out to make sure that there's nothing that should be getting into our bodies or nothing proliferating in our bodies that shouldn't be, but it's also responsible for scavenging. There's a lot of things that, like our skin cells that flake off when they're not supposed to be there, or when they get old. There's all that process going on inside of our body as well. That's designed to keep things fresh and new. Because the more fresh and new our bodies are, the more adaptable it becomes. Okay. So within the immune system, there's two main immune responses, and I'm not trying to make you into an immunologist. So take as much information out of this as you want to. But basically, you have your Th1 system. Okay. This is in broad terms, externalization. Okay, so when you have a Th1 immune response, you get rashes or hives or things like that. Your eyes get runny, you get stuffy nose. Basically, what the body is doing in the Th1 immune response is pushing out the body, is pushing out the toxins from the body out externally. Okay, so that's when you can think of like allergies or something like that, where it's pushing the bacteria and all that stuff out of the body. Okay, Th2 response is a humoral response. Okay, so basically this is more of an internal response. It's much more specific rather than just launching the entire brigade and sending everything out and trying to attack wherever it can. What it does is it finds something that's not supposed to be there, it'll tag it, and then everyone else comes around, your T cells and whatnot, and will attack you and destroy it. Okay, so instead of sending everyone to the front lines to try to destroy everything in front of it, what it does is it says, hey, this is the general, we're going to attack this person, and everything else is going to flee from there. Everything else is going to fall away. Okay, so it's antigen specific. It's a specific, learned, and retained immune response. Okay. Now, adaptability is key. Okay, so when we talk about our neuroimmune response, what's the next slide? Okay, when we talk about our neuroimmune response, there's something to understand is that within your autonomic nervous system, so autonomic kind of sounds like automatic, right? Your automatic or autonomic nervous system is doing everything in our bodies that you don't think about. So you're obviously not consciously trying to create a Th1 or a Th2 immune response. I'm gonna go right back up here so I don't switch them. And obviously, there's times when a Th1 immune response is better and a Th2 immune response is better. Okay, so a Th1 immune response is more active during stress. Okay, so when your body is stressed, it's more likely to just say, let's send everyone out, let's kill it, let's not give any chance for it to take root. Th2 immune response will be more during, we call it our parasympathetic or rest, digest, more of a calculated response. Okay. Now, this is the nervous system controlling the function of the immune system. Okay, so if the nervous system isn't working well, then that means maybe the wrong immune response is also going to be activated. Okay, so it's important to know how we maintain balance or how we activate or deactivate the parasympathetic or sympathetic nervous system. Okay, well, there's one main thing. We're going to talk about this a lot more at the end, something called the subluxation. This is unique to chiropractic, where you have the joints in the spine that aren't moving where they're supposed to. Okay, either moving in a bad pattern or not moving as much as they're supposed to, which means that the brain isn't receiving the signal from the sensory information, which changes the way the brain processes the environment. Okay, now if I put you in a dark room, spun you around and told you to find the entrance, are you going to start off by running? No, you're going to be much more calculated and cautious, right? So that puts you in a stress response. Stress response means that your muscles are tighter, means that your digestive system isn't working the way it can. It's not digesting food well. Your immune system is on high alert, okay? And so if you, if your spine's not working the way it's supposed to, it's changing the status of your nervous system, which is changing the response of your immune system. Okay, and so going on to this next one here, adaptability is key. Okay, so it's okay to be sometimes at Th1, sometimes at Th2, sometimes a little more here, sometimes a little less there. However, if your joints aren't moving right, it's changing the perception of what's going on in your environment, therefore changing the response. Your body's going to be in this constant state of Th1 immune response because it's in a constant state of sympathetic fight or flight in your autonomic nervous system. And I hope that makes sense. That's a lot of technical knowledge. But the reason why that's important is because if your body is constantly responding to every single invader, with a Th1 immune response, one, your immune system is going to get fatigued. Two, that means you're going to have a lot of histamines, a lot of free radicals, a lot of inflammation going on within the body because your body's always on high alert. It always has a small threshold. Okay. And so why does this happen? Or basically, what can we do to kind of skew our nervous or rebalance our nervous system so that way it's not in this chronic fight or flight, but we'll balance between the two. Actually, sorry, let me back up and then we'll get in there. Susceptibility, okay? So who is susceptible to allergies, asthma, those sort of things? Is it really the germs? I think that's the next slide. Let me see. Okay, so that's this one here, susceptibility. Is there really more germs during this season? Is there more germs now than there is in the summer? Some would say there's probably less germs now than there is in the summer because germs like the heat, right? So if there's less germs now, why is there more sickness going on? Well, in my opinion, we're not really regulated to where the germs are doing. We're more regulated to what our bodies are doing in reaction to the germs. If our bodies are more susceptible, then that means the germs have an easier opportunity to take host and infiltrate and get us sick. Okay, so what can we do to prevent that and continue to improve our defenses? Okay, I thought of this example right before I started, so it might not be polished or refined. But let's say you own a plot of land that you are designed or that you are given to protect. Okay, let's say there's a constant source of 100 people always trying to attack you. Okay, if you don't have a wall, how easy is it for those? Are you going to get taken over? Pretty stinking easy, right? If you have a wall, it's going to be more difficult. If you have a wall and a moat, it's going to be even more difficult. If you have a wall and a remote and a moat, and then also towers that are shooting arrows towards everyone else, to these people, so they can't even attack you to begin with, there's less and less of a chance of your land getting taken over, right? So our bodies are the same, okay? There's constantly germs, there's constantly stress around us that's constantly trying to get in and take over, okay? However, if we have a strong immune system, if we have strong walls, so our skin is strong, our digestive system is strong, then that means it's going to be less difficult for these things to penetrate, okay? Now, if we build a moat, if we have now an excess ability to adapt, then that means it's going to be more difficult. And if we increase our adaptability even more, that means it's even more difficult. Okay, so rather than trying to kill all the nerves, all the bacteria around us, let's figure out ways to build up our defenses because we're never going to kill all the germs. In fact, did you know that we are actually more bacteria than we are human? There's more bacterial cells in our body than there are human cells. Okay, so you're never going to get rid of all the bacteria and around you in your environment, no matter how much bleach and Lysol and all that stuff that you use. And so the solution actually is to build up our defenses. And so that's what we want to talk about now. Okay, the first thing, I do it regularly, especially because I spend most of my time indoors in my office, is vitamin D. Okay, vitamin D, like I said, it's a catalyst. It's mood boosting, it's immune system boosting. It helps your body work better. So taking, especially if you're stuck inside for long periods of time, you're in the Midwest, those sort of things, you want to make sure that you're taking an immune boosting vitamin like vitamin D. Now, if you can get vitamin D and K2 together, it shows that that combination is more bioavailable, meaning that you're going to get more out of it. Okay. The second thing is get moving. Movement promotes immune system health. Okay, it's a good stress on the body that helps cleanse out and detox the bad stuff, allowing room for good stuff to come on, and also not allowing the bad stuff to get to a point where the body can't contain it anymore. It also gets the joints moving, which stimulates the brain. Okay, and then obviously optimal nutrition. Don't let your kids eat all that sugar. Make sure your kids are taking vitamins. Make sure your kids are eating, drinking juices and eating fruits and things like that. A lot of stuff that have antioxidants, rather things that are going to stress out the body. And then lastly, contrary to what most people think, is chiropractic. Okay, let's see what my next slide is here. Chiropractic is proactive. Okay, what we talked about earlier is the cost of being proactive is way less than being reactive. There's a study that showed, and I'm going to butcher the numbers. Maybe I'll post them in the comments. Let me see, I can just look at my outline real quick, actually. There's a study, no, not that one. Can I move this? This one, yeah. Okay, so there's a study that shows it's right here. Research, people that were under chiropractic care had a 45% decrease in number of asthma attacks, okay? 31 of them decided to stop taking their medication. And then if we go down here, there's a people that were under chiropractic care had 60.2 less hospital admissions, 59% less hospital days, 62% less outpatient surgeries, and 83% less pharmaceutical costs. Okay, so if you think that, let me go back over here. If you think that getting chiropractic care is more expensive than dealing with your illness, you're wrong, because people spend less for being proactive than being reactive. Okay, so be proactive about your health, and that's what that one was there. If you have a healthier system, you're going to get sick less, which means you're going to recover faster, which means that you don't need medications, you don't need those hospital visits, and supplements are much cheaper than gosh, supplements are much cheaper. I was thinking about something next. Supplements are much cheaper than the pharmaceuticals usually anyways, okay? And then lastly, get checked. If chiropractic helps the joints move better, whether you're 1 day old or 100 years old, if chiropractic helps the joints move better, that's going to allow the brain to understand the environment, which reduces the stress, which brings better balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic, allowing your body to make better health decisions for itself.